significant number of the residents in Friday Street. And the first thing is I'd actually like to thank the council for approaching and succeeding in suspending the parking and the ticketing of cars parking at the end of Friday Street in the 1 hour slots. So very quickly the council managed to resolve temporarily that situation and we're no longer being ticketed. Leads to a question. I don't know if the council have any indication of this thought processes of the county council, how long it might take them to make a decision on whether the local council will be lobbying and putting arguments forward to make that suspension permanent, or whether they would like any involvement or help or assistance from the residents in Friday Street. But thank you for what you've achieved so far.
Okay, thank you. We will speak to that in a moment. If you'd like to speak first.
Yeah, I'll sit down if you don't mind.
Yeah,
so Adrian Chivers from Friday Street. I'd like to very much echo what Nigel said there, to town clerk and councils for their swift assistance in our hour of need. And good to know that some residents did actually get their parking fines refunded. It would be good to find out if all of those parking fines for residents with permits were refunded. And I just want to say that the experience that we've had in these last couple of months has taught us how fine the balance the situation is with resident parking in Hendon, particularly in the area that we live. The pressures on those residential parking spaces are increasing all the time. In Friday Street alone, over the last 10 years, there are about 12 additional residences that perhaps once businesses or something like that. So the pressure is increasing. Residents who have paid for those parking permits no longer have the use of some of the car parks where they could in the past park from 2 PM onwards, so that exacerbates the problem as well. And again, I don't think it's by any design, but some of the planning that has been allowed to go through where perhaps the people who's in these new residences didn't have the option of parking permits over time have been able to get those market permits. So again, that's another pressure. And I guess certainly from a number of our residents, we just like to be kept informed of the developments in terms of this, because we realise that this is a temporary situation that the town council has managed to achieve with Oxford County Council, but also to let you know that we are willing to participate in any initiatives and get involved in trying to come up with some long-term solutions for the situation.
Thank you. Okay, yes. Councillor Gavishak would like to answer some of your questions and some of your points.
Well, I'll just make a few comments. I get the answer to the questions or not. So I will, and also the town clerk will speak after me. I'm the county councillor, and actually Councillor Arlott and I jumped on the case as soon as we heard about it. There have been two problems with the implementation of the permit scheme, one at Northfield End, and immediately, there was ticketing happening down there, and immediately we spoke to the county, and they were all rescinded. So all of the tickets should have been rescinded. All right. If you know of anyone that isn't, please email the town hall or email me personally. The suspension will be there for as long as it takes to do the review. There is a review happening in the town council at the moment. We're reviewing all of the parking in the whole of Hendon, and including this particular area as well. So therefore, there will be suggestions coming forward for it. But at the moment, it's suspended until that process has gone through. You will be fully consulted on any changes that happen going forward on Friday Street. But thank you for drawing it to our attention, and also thank you for coming in and saying thank you. We try to resolve it as soon as we possibly could. But you're right. I mean, these things happen. I mean, just to say in a broader concept, civil parking enforcement is very, very good for Henley, because it does actually clobber people that park inconsiderately. But it was never the intention to actually clobber legitimate residents. On your other point, on planning permissions that remove residents' rights, there have been a number of schemes in the town that have had their rights removed, and then legally they challenged it, and they've been reinstated. So there is a real problem with parking, that people are legitimately allowed to have residents parking. I'll leave it to the town clerk to say anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't really have much to add other than the councillors who are members of the parking working group who've been doing bringing forward proposals for changes to the parking restrictions around the town. Those surveys have now been completed and they'll be meeting at the beginning of September to bring forward a final list of recommendations for the county council to review. It will then be up to the county council to assess those and to decide which of those to take forward to public consultation. However, we're working closely with the county council throughout the process, so hopefully the recommendations that we make should be favourably received.
On a more general note, Mr. Dewhurst, you mentioned that there's lots of conversions from, say, commercial use to residential, what the planning committee do try to do is we try to push back at SODC and say this is a conservation area and we cannot have this because where are they going to park? And I'm afraid the officers always come back at us and say it's known as a sustainable space because we have a train station, we have buses. So unfortunately, they always get agreed, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it because we're not the planning authority. And that's that's something that the central government has decided that we have to do, up and down the country. They've relaxed all of the classes. So the only reason we do have some protection in this town is because we have conservation areas. Okay, would anybody else like to speak before we move on? Okay, all right, let's move on. Thank you very much for coming again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 4, minutes to approve the minutes of the last full council meeting, which was held on the 3rd of June. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Next on the agenda is item number 5, which is reports of all of the committees. And first we have the planning committee on pages 7 to 9. So I call on Councillor Arlett, who chaired that particular meeting on the 21st of June.
Madam Chair, I wish to move the minutes of the planning committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 21st of June 2022. Item 38, apologies for absence, 39, declaration of interest, 40 minutes, 41, public participation, 42, plans new on page 2 and on page 3, 44, objections and call-in applications, 44, decision notices, 45, appeal decision Town and Country Plan Act 1990, page 4, item 46, Oxfordshire County Council, Wildlife and Countryside, 1981, section 53, I'm sure you'll know it well, application for definitive map and modification order, 47, joint local plan 2041, 48, review of South Oxfordshire Community Infrastructure Levy draft and charging schedule.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Does that include the consideration of the sill rate of £150 per square metre? Is that going to be reviewed as part of this process? SODC undertake?
Yeah, there is a review taking place at SODC. I can't give you any information on it. There is a review taking place. I think part of the review will be where the money is going to go to as well. But as soon as I get any information, I'll either give it to you personally or it will go in my district council report. But there is a review taking place. 49, progress report for applications called in. So moved.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. So the next set of planning minutes is the meeting which was held on Tuesday, the 12th of July. Again, I call upon Councillor Arlett to move those minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wish to move the minutes of the Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 12th of July 2022. Page 1. Item 50, apologies for absence. 51, declaration of interest. 52, minutes. 53, public participation. 54, plans amended. On page 1 and on page 12 and on page 13. 55 plans new on page 2 and page 3. 56 objections, calling applications. 57 decision notices. 58 appeal decision, Town and Country Planet Act 1990, which was a strange one. 59 transport strategy group. 60 community governance review. 61 progress report for applications called in. 62 progress report. So moved.
Thank you. All those in favour? All those in favour? Oh, that's carried. Okay, next on page 15, please. Now, do I have any volunteers? All right, thank you. Okay, so I call upon Councillor Hinton, please, to move the minutes of
So we actually have to leave. Blimey, I only turned up to one meeting. Two, actually, I went to bed first.
You can find it. It's because Michelle went out of red.
I didn't want it to burn.
this is the first one we've got on the full council since I took over from Cliffy.
You kept it secret from me.
I know.
I assume we're still.
I wasn't even going to tell the town clerk because he always told me never to tell him, so I had to ask him.
Sheridan, are we still broadcasting? Okay.
Yeah.
I could be your driver. Will I lose as many golf? I don't know, but that's weird.
Yeah,
true. How's they golf play? Last time I played golf, I got a Jack Anderson back. They were very bad. Got very good. By the end of the round. Yeah. That's good enough.
Okay, as soon as possible, please, everyone. Okay, this meeting is resuming at 10 to 8. Now, where were we? Yes. Southampton, please read the minutes on Tuesday, 21st of June. Thank you.
Councillor Haynes, and
Thank
kicking
you.
off.
Now present the Recreation and Amenity Committee meeting minutes held on the 21st of June. Item 14, apologies for absence. 15, declarations of interest. 16, public participation. 17, minutes. 18, progress. 19, finances. 20, Fairmount Cemetery. 21, allotments. 22, Mill Days Adventure Golf.
I'd just like to update the council, please, on allotments. So we were contacted by one of, by an allotment holder earlier on this week, who were slightly concerned about some of the changes that had been made to the tenancy agreement. So what we have decided between the clerk, myself, Councillor Eggleton, Councillor Reisman, and Councillor Crook, who is chair of RNA, is to give the allotment holder who expressed that, that point, just to give them a little bit of time to go back to their own committee and discuss their concerns, because this tenancy agreement doesn't actually get implemented until the 1st of October. So we thought that was a good solution all round. Councillor Eggleton, did you want to speak?
The person or the persons, the persons involved, there's only one of those is actually allotment holder, the other person I think is either a partner or something like that.
Okay.
This person's never had the opportunity to go to meetings. Any of the meetings are all open to the public, so whenever they want to express their views on any subject, or they could have come tonight and expressed their views on the things. And I think, from what I can gather reading between the lines, I think they've been targeted by it's to do over a tree, and the policy was stating that all trees that are in the allotment, that obviously there's quite a few trees already in there. Obviously, you can't do much about those ones. So the ones that are in there, the policy I think says that any trees that are in there has to be trimmed back within 5 to 6 foot. So those are ones that have already been there. So we're not asking people to take them out. The other thing was anybody that wants to put a tree in has to be in a pot, and it has to be above ground. So therefore so we're not saying we're banning trees. So but this particular plot apparently it's got a tree right on the boundary. On their boundary, so it's not in the middle of their plot, which is overlapping other plots, and it's overlapping the walkways between it. So that's what creates the problem. So no one's being targeted, it's just being everybody's in the same thing. And we're quite happy to work alongside, and I mean there's 200 and I think it's about 200 people on that allotment, but you've got one person which is complaining about the policy. So, and I mean, it's that they're the only person which has got the tree. I mean, there's quite a few people with trees in there, and everybody's in the same thing. So everybody, even my wife's plot has got a tree in it, which we have to keep down to that to that height. So we all have to abide by the rules and regulations that's set down. So I don't think it's too harsh in asking people to, with existing trees, to cut them down within the 6 foot thing. So I can't see them being a problem.
Well, okay, thank you, Councillor Eccleston. I think, you know, between now and the 1st of October, I think that there'll be enough time for everyone to come to a happy compromise. So we look forward to them getting together, and Councillor Rees-Mogg is going to be going to the next meeting. And I've offered to go along as well if they find that venues at all. We'll see. Okay, so although, did you get the last minute?
Well, 22 Mohammed Isabel Joe, I see.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour?
Almost as quick as
Thank
the
you.
meeting, Chairman.
That's carried, thank you. Okay, next one, next set of minutes, page 17, please, is the minutes of the Town and Community meeting on Tuesday, the 17th of May. Now, Councillor Lambert is not here, as is Councillor Miller or Councillor Crook. Would you like me to read them? Yeah, anyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So item 11, apologies. 12, declarations of interest. 13, public participation. 14, minutes. 15, parking. 16, town centre manager update. 17, communications manager update. 18, progress report. 19, police update. 10, finances 2021-22. Councillor Roberts, thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, over the last few months, I've been in communication with John Howe, our MP, reference this is to do with finance, to do with the marketplace, where we were charging for the use there. And a policy came in from central government, where we could only charge £100 per spot, which obviously costs the town council a lot of money. So I've been in touch with John Howe, our MP, and we were under the impression the town clerk sent an email with a letter attached to it, but for some reason he didn't receive it. And you know, I had this sinking feeling once I found out that John Howe hadn't received it. So I spoke to him the other day. So I think we kind of owe him an apology, because it's not too difficult to apologise. And I apologise because I made some comments in there which were printed in the Henley Standard, because I was on the assumption, which shows you should never assume, that he'd received the email and the letter, which he said he hadn't. So I apologise for the comments that I made to him. But further to that, you know, I received another email a few days ago, because obviously they're still talking about this. I'm not sure it's going to carry on or not. And he's not sure, you know, come September, that this will be the end of it, and then we can carry on charging again. So I'm in correspondence with him at the moment. So as soon as we hear any more information on that, or if we don't hear any more information, I think we should start charging from the 1st of October. That would be my proposal.
Right, thank you. Yes, Councillor.
In case anyone thinks this is a small matter, the government's legislation which prevents us from charging more than £100 is actually costing this council £25,000 £25,000, and so it's a very significant sum, and that's over more than 1 year. And I'm all for supporting local businesses, enabling them to get back on their feet after the difficulties of the pandemic, which is an obvious thing to do. But I do object to the broad brush approach, where multinationals which don't pay their tax, like Starbucks, are included in the benefits of the scheme, and it was, I think, drawn up in haste without full realisation of the implications. And I hope that the scheme is discontinued. We help traders and commercial activities in the town in other ways.
Yes.
Will I just be able to clarify? The town council is in I'd say a unique position in that any other authority that issues a seating licence, there is a cap on the fee that they can usually levy. Now that cap has been brought down to £100 during the pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, we're only talking a few £100s. The only way that the cap does not apply is if that authority owns the subsoil. which the town council does. So it's only through the fact that the council owns both the subsoil and has a section 101 agreement to allow us to issue the seating licenses, which means that we can charge greater than that cap. So virtually every other authority in the country would actually, it would have a very negligible effect on an authority. But just the Henley Town Council does have a very significant impact.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think I managed to read out that last minute, so I do so move. All those in favour? That's carried. Okay, and the next set of minutes is from the Finance and Strategy and Management Committee, which was held on the 5th of July. I call upon Councillor Rousseau.
I'd like to move the minutes of the Finance Strategy and Management Committee meeting held on the 5th of July 2022. Item 16, apologies. Item 17, declarations of interest. Item 18, public participation. Item 19, minutes. Item 20, finance. Item 21, expenditure. Item 22, exclusion of public and press. Item 23, legal updates. Item 24, 357 Reading Road, gym lease. I so move.
Thank you. All those in favour? I would like to apologise to you, Councillor Rice.
You did it 3 times now.
Always get it wrong. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's embarrassing. Right, let's move on to the next item, which is item number 6, which is reports of other authorities on page 21 to 26. Would any of the councillors like to present these reports, or would you like to comment, or would anyone like to? Yeah. So
I'd just like to thank Councillor Arlen for the amount of work he does, because I've been a bit MIA recently, and I pass people his way frequently. He's always contributing heavily as a councillor. So I just wanted to thank, and Stefan, of course, as well. There's 3 of us, you can't really single one out, actually leave the other, but yeah, I just wanted to thank Ken for picking up.
Stop digging, Kelly.
Yeah, I know, Michelle. Where's the fire alarm?
thank you.
You're on for next time.
Councillor Gavshock, did you want to speak to your report at all?
Just a couple of quick comments, if I may. The LTP5, which I've said in my report, is a really important document. And as I said before, I am pressing the councillor, Councillor Enright, as to when this 18-ton ban is going to come into the area. So I'm pushing on that, I'm emailing, etc., etc., etc. Very full report on the roadworks and potholes, etc. Just an update on the new street. You will have seen it's happening at the moment. That they're doing New Street, and also they will be doing they will do Bell Street up towards the Lee roundabout in the coming weeks as well. But you can see the quality work that's happening down on Thameside. It's that bit is complete, and it really is a very, very good job. So yes, yeah, it's a good surface. So that road was in desperate need of him doing it. But I do want to correct one thing. There are 2 Twitter feeds that I'm banned from. Why on earth anyone would ban me, this gentle person on the council and town, district and county council? Why anyone would ban me from Twitter, I do not know. So therefore, I have now the opportunity to actually correct something that was said on it. I mean, I have access to these accounts because I can just log on anonymously. Whenever something floats past my vision, it is said that the New Street £400,000 was funded by government. It was not. It was funded by Oxfordshire County Council residents and some prudential borrowing by Oxfordshire County Council. Not 1 penny of that road is being repaired by government fund. So I'd just like to correct that, and you have my report, and thank you very much. And I would just like to be unbanned from Twitter comments so I could correct the misleading comments that are made without coming to the council and correcting. Thank you.
Ask if you potentially create a different account, and then maybe we'll.
Councillor Buckley, if you're speaking, would you stand?
I quite understand you'd like to correct the Twitter accounts or whatever, you could create a different account and log by phone.
Well, yeah, I don't want to do that. I just think I should be on that. That's so
My
I can
advice
just
to
do
you
it
all is to
Okay.
to not say anything on Twitter, because I think it's unbecoming of us all, quite frankly. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
right, let's move on. Next item on the agenda is item 8. Oh, it's Mayor's civic engagements. It's my favourite part of the agenda. Have I missed something? Oh, reports, sorry, reports about, I was getting far too excited with presenting my diary. Okay, item number 7, reports from outside bodies. Do we have any? Yes, Councillor Arnott.
Yes, Madam Mayor, myself and yourself are trustees for the River and Rome Museum. You may have seen an article in the Henley Standard last week, and also a letter to the editor by Michael Redley. I've got a lot of time for Michael Redley, but I'm not sure why he wrote the letter that he wrote, because he'd already spoken to the chairman of the River and Rome Museum. Basically, he was writing about the Henley part of the museum, which I totally agree. You know, where it is hidden away, wasn't the greatest idea in the world, but there is no way that the Henley part of the museum will disappear from the River and Rome Museum. In fact, actually, it will be in a better location once all the refurbishment has taken place. So, in all the readers of the Henley Standard that thought that part of the museum would go, it won't go, and that will be staying. So I'd just like to correct Mr. Reddy. As I say, he does a lot of work for this town, as Michael. You know, he's with the historical group as well. But I didn't think I haven't spoken to him, but I don't think there was any need for the letter that he wrote to the Henley Standard.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so let's move on now to item number 8, which is Mayor's civic engagements. If you turn to page 27 of the agendas. And thank you to our town clerk for making sure that it's legible on this occasion. I asked you to check for me. How blind I am. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on any of my engagements at all? Yes, Councillor Plant.
Was the bowls match the most enjoyed?
We have such. I'm not sure the bowls match has actually hit this agenda, but yeah, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Yeah. And I'd just like to add to everybody that when Kevin, who is the chair, current chair, when he thanked me for attending, or those of you who can make it for attending, he said that my bowling was pretty good. Right, so I just like to make sure that's on the record.
Kelly's known as the dam busters.
Kelly.
Yeah, I'm terrible.
So it's Tom Buckley now. Not Tom Buckley, Rob Rowland. We might should throw it up with it now.
So no, all of you have an open invitation to attend if you want to do so at any time. It's great fun. Okay, let's move on then to item number 9, which is the expenditure. So if you would please move to page number 29 on the agendas. Right, so this is on automatic meter readings, and we have Kath Adams here, our deputy clerk and planning and project manager, in case any of the councillors have any questions. Or Kath, would you like to speak to the item at all? I can speak briefly. Thank you. I stand up. It's up to you.
So basically, having declared a climate emergency in February 2020, we've been undertaking work to establish a baseline for the council's energy consumption. And as part of this, we also obtained a grant of 29,000 from the Rural Community Energy Fund, which produced a report investigating building decarbonisation opportunities for the sites at six council buildings or sites. This work overall highlighted that we have meter readings, that at the moment the parks team go around and take meter readings. The town sergeant takes meter readings for town centre meters. But obviously, say the first of the month may not fall on working days. So we don't necessarily have, though we have relatively regular ones, we don't necessarily have comparable date periods. And it's also quite time consuming. There's also transferal for the accounts officer to move readings from photos or from notes that she's passed to transfer to spreadsheets. So we looked into automatic meter reading and went out to 3 companies. We had meetings with 2 of those companies. And one of the companies, in fact, has already put a trial with automatic meter reader on the water meter at Waterman's allotments, which has been really useful because we've been able to look at the portal and see the information that we get, and it has already, in fact, highlighted where something was obviously left running overnight. So we can set alerts so that we know if there was unusual usage. So it's a combination of benefits, really. The staff time saved should basically cover the annual cost of if we went with company A. They've got a very high setup cost, but then relatively low annual charges, whereas the other companies just charge quite a high amount for the first year and then every year subsequently. So it will save time. It'll mean we've got better information. We'll be better able, once we start putting in energy saving measures in the town council buildings, we'll be better able to see the effects of those. And it'll be a benefit to the estates team, the parks team, the accounting team, and the project and planning team. So officers are very, very keen for this to go ahead. Hence the report and recommendations there.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Plant.
My question was actually going to be how often does the equipment need to be kind of replaced? But even with company A, even if it needed to be replaced every 5 years, it would still be the cheapest to go for. So
It's guaranteed for 10 years.
Yeah, recommend that you go with everything as in box 5.
Okay, is that seconded? Yes, Councillor Everton, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Yes, Councillor.
Can I just ask a question on the fixed fee for 1 year? Have they given any indication what years 2, 3, 4 and 5 will be?
I think it was based on RPI.
Any other councillor like to speak before we put this to the vote? Okay, so the recommendation has been proposed for acceptance, for approval. It's been seconded.
Sorry, could I just
Yes,
ask one?
Councillor
So,
Baker.
yeah, RPI, we have to be extremely careful with that, because RPI is heading towards 11%, 10%, 12%, whatever percent. So I'm not going to stop this. Of course, this is brilliant and should happen, but to actually sign up to the deal that doesn't actually have the figures for years 2, 3, and 4. And I would say it should be you set cost plus 3%, 3%, 4%, and keep it within measurable control. But 12% RPI over the next 4 years is a lot of money. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Hamilton.
I actually think we should go ahead with this, but I think we should ask the town clerk to negotiate a deal where it's fixed for the next 5 years at the current rate. I don't think why we should pay RPI. I think we're taking on something here. It's quite a significant investment, and let's try and get it fixed in the next 5 years.
Excuse me, I did ask a question of the officer, not, yeah. Comment forward.
Yes, would you like to, or would you like to?
I think this might need clarification from the deputy clerk, but I believe because the annual charge is just over £1,000, then, for example, if you do have 12%, then that would be £120. Obviously, it would it could be cumulative after that. I would doubt that there would. I think this would probably be a fixed agreement. I doubt there would be much room for manoeuvre, but I might be wrong.
Yes, Kath, would you like to say?
Yeah, I need to check. I haven't got it in what I've got with me in terms of what it is likely to increase by. And we haven't seen the draft contract, but I think I'd put Sheridan to be able to agree to sign the contract. So we can obviously review that before we signed up to it.
Shall we just slip a small amendment in? Would that be agreeable to everybody? Okay, so the amendment is that before signing the contract, that we have something in writing as to how much it will go up year on year in terms of the contract.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it's fixed.
But that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
okay.
So you can-
All right, so let's.
Sorry, but just briefly, as I'll be brief like councillor, Gadsha. The only reason I asked that, because what I was concerned at, to be honest, 10% is a lot, but it's not a lot on £1,000. What I was concerned about is looking at company B and company C, because obviously these figures are open to the public now, and I didn't want to see us get anywhere near those two figures. So as long as it's RBI, I don't really have a problem with it. Sorry.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, so the next item on the percentage is item 9B, which is, thank you, Kath, £960.38 from computer maintenance to capital expenditure for an additional laptop, and this is going to be presented by Town Clerk.
Thank you very much. This item, we've already bought the laptop and it's gone to our INE budget. But because it is a new asset, then it is something that we can capitalise. It looks like quite a lot for a laptop, £960. However, that is the cost of laptop, dual screens, peripherals, and the setup and software as well. So the whole for the whole lot. The reason that we needed this is that because everybody has their own laptop and people work both remotely and from the office, we had basically one per member of staff. However, when we have a new member of staff and you have a handover period, what we were finding is that we were then scrabbling around to try and find a spare laptop so that both members of staff would be able to work at the same time, and the laptop for the new member of staff could be set up basically for their arrival, so that you don't have any loss of productivity. And it's also to provide us with a spare laptop in the offices should somebody like myself, for example, forget their laptop and leave it at home. So that's the reason that we decided to buy it. All we're asking the council to do is to via the cost from the computer maintenance budget to capital expenditure.
Okay, that's the part.
Just a point of that, and just approve.
Okay, thank you. Would any councillor like to speak? No? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, the next item is C, up to £20,000 for capital expenditure for a replacement parts utility task vehicle, and all of this deals with the agenda item here. In front of you, you have a chance to read it. Yes, councillor White.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to this item. This town council invests a great deal in the services that are provided by the Parks team, and because we have a surprisingly large number of assets, as shown that when we had 29 meters to cover for automatic reading, and so we spend a great deal on the people and on the equipment that they need in order to carry out the work, which I think is excellent and is appreciated by the town. And it seems to me we regularly have an item like this that comes up, where we're asked to approve a vehicle or some other equipment. And to be honest, I don't really know much about UTVs, and so I feel that I'm at a slight disadvantage perhaps to some other councillors or officers. I'm sure Councillor Hinton will know more about this than I do. But what I would like to see as Chair of Finance is a clearer plan and justification on the use and the need for the vehicles that we do provide. A significant amount of there are 6 vehicles, and if they're all £20,000, we talk about 6-figure sum every 5 or 6 years across the cycle of vehicles that we need. So I'm happy to accept the town clerk's proposal on behalf of the park sector. This is required of the park service to do their job, but I would like to see. I'm not going to make this part of the proposal, but I would like to see that at some point shortly the town clerk or another officer produces a report to the finance committee, which gives a full audit of the vehicles, an estimate of their life, the work they're used for, and a description of that. And also so we can then budget effectively, knowing how much we're likely to spend each year. And although it is a capital expense, it still should appear, I think, in the accounts as part of our demonstration that we are obtaining value from money. We do know what we intend to spend, and if and when we do go over, why perhaps our planning was wrong. So I'd like to support the proposals in 9C. So.
Yeah, so we've got a number of hands up. Did you want to speak first, Town Clerk, before we go to the council?
I'm happy to obviously hear from the councillors and.
Okay, let's start with Councillor Hinton.
I was just going to step in.
Okay, second, thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
I don't usually agree with Councillor Riseman, but on this one, I actually do think we did a clear report. If these vehicles are costing, say, 20 grand each, we've got 2 tractors, we've got 4 Transit tipper, a Ford Ranger, a Kawasaki Mule. There are vehicles that are needed for towing, and there are vehicles that are not needed for towing. And I would like this council to be moving to electric, and I've discussed this previously when it comes to tippers and things like that, and I think that's what we should be doing. So I understand why the mule can't be electric, but I think the tipper could be electric. So in that plan that the town clerk puts together, I would like to see a priority list of the vehicles that could be moved to electric, given what's out there at the moment. UPS do vans, for example, electric. Post office are moving to electric vans. There are vehicles out there that tow, but yes, the park services need a mule. In this case, a mule. I did speak to the park services to ask them what they really wanted, because sometimes you get a different view. But I'm happy to support this, but I would like to see within that plan a move, probably for the tipper and the Ranger first, to move to electric, in my view. But let's see what the plan says.
So your point, though, Councillor Hamilton, is answered in 4.1C. You need to get that by the report.
I've got a report here, it's 5.1. Sorry.
But agenda item 8.
I'm looking at I've got looking at the report here.
Yeah. Page 2, top of the page. All of that's in there.
No, my point is within the plan that the town clerk puts together.
Oh, I see.
I said,
The one that Councillor.
For the one that Councillor Riseman has raised, I would suggest that we have a priority list. For example, the Ranger or the non-towing vehicles to move to electric as soon as possible, as feasible, within cost, within time, within schedule, over the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark, do you want to speak?
No.
Okay. Would any other, yes, Councillor Hamilton.
I've also spoken to Park Services, and obviously they're the experts in the field of what, and they've had opportunity, I think, to my belief, they've had tried out several vehicles or asked the aspect of what would these vehicles be able to tow on electric, and they haven't got any electrical vehicles like what Will was saying at this present time to do the same type of job. So, and they're more expensive. So why would you want to pay more money out for electric vehicle, even though, yeah, you should be doing that, but there isn't that structure around at this time. So you'd be wasting money, spending a lot more money on electric vehicles that wouldn't be able to do the jobs that they needed to do. And I would say that the park services, in my opinion, that everything they've done their research, they know what vehicles they need, and they do an excellent job in this town. And if they've got the right vehicles, they can carry on doing that.
Yes, certainly. I think there have been a lot of very valid concerns. I think the issue is, yes, the parks staff, they do not know what they're talking about. They are the experts, and often unless you're embedded within the team, it's difficult to know from a report like this, well, exactly what are they used for? Is this exactly the vehicle that we should have? Should we be going for a different one? Should we be going for use, or should we be going for use? So there is certainly a certain amount of trust there, and we do ask those questions on electric. Certainly, I think we would all agree that we'd like to go to electric as soon as it's feasible. We realise that it's not possible with the mule. However, with the tipper, with the Ranger, that is a possibility for the future. They were only bought in 2018 and 2019 respectively, so that might be a little way off. But we are also looking at other options, such as the used vegetable oil proposal, which will be coming forward. So we did do this with the assistance of the project officer for climate emergency. But I also do agree that that a more strategic vision is kind of needed for our assets, because we have the vehicles, we have 9 vehicles, because I have 2 ride-on rows and another tractor that's used for Jubilee Park, the AstroTurf there, and the value of that is around about £200,000 worth of vehicles that we have, as well as probably about 12 or so major accessories that go alongside. So I think it is important for the councillors to appreciate that, to have the information in order to make that decision. And I'm very happy to work with the Parks team on an audit of our vehicles and major equipment, and to put a plan in place for the replacement. Historically, 20,000 had been put aside for capital expenditure for new machinery, parks machinery each year. But I don't think that has been done in the past 3 or so years at all. But that's certainly something that we can look to resurrect, but also have it based on actual facts coming from an audit, rather than just a figure put out of the air. And so yes, I'm more than happy to work with the Parks team on that.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Marsden, are you happy?
Can I just answer, make one slightly broader point on the specifics that have been raised? Any report on identifying the requirements and that comes to finance will have a section on impact assessment, as all our reports do. And of course, it should bear in mind our commitment to the climate emergency, which we declared 2 years ago. And so rather than just put in a specific request for electric vehicles or other, we should look at all parts of our operation in this area and make sure that we are meeting our obligations towards net zero, and that we reduce our carbon footprint as much as we can.
Yeah, okay. Would any other councillor like to speak? Sorry?
I was sort of intending that to sum up, yeah.
Okay. All right then, let's go for approval then. All those in favour? All those against?
I'm in Spain, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's
But
carried.
against for a moment.
Okay, thank you. Right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Which is item number 10. Which is the calendar of meetings. If you want to, I mean, it's quite obvious when we're actually moving the date of this one, but you just want to give us a line on.
Very briefly, just to say that it's moving back a week because you have the elections coming up on first Thursday in May, and this is to give a little bit of time between the elections and the mayor making to get all of our ducks in place.
Okay, yeah, it's a necessary one, I think.
I
Okay,
propose we do that.
yes,
It seems an
okay,
obvious and sensible arrangement.
yes, thank you, that's seconded.
Secondly, can I just say, can I just check that the Tuesday regatta is not going to be scheduled for them to see the whole calendar? It was raised, I just wanted to re-raise it at full council as well. Tuesday regatta, now that regatta is on 6 days, I suggest the council doesn't meet on the day of regatta, but supports the regatta, because obviously the mayor needs to be there.
That was discussed. The calendar of meetings only goes up to including mayor making in May, but when the next calendar of meetings is drafted, then we'll make sure.
Okay, so yes, Councillor
Yeah,
Arnold.
can I just suggest, Madam Mayor, that anybody is not standing next year, which Councillor Hamilton said he wasn't. I don't really see anybody who voted for that personally. Just a few.
All right, so we've had a proposal, was it seconded?
Yes.
Yeah, it was seconded, okay, all those in favour? Okay, thank you, that's carried. Okay, item 11 is end of year finances 21-22. So we finally have the final internal audit report, which is at the back of your agendas. Do you feel we need to speak to this one?
I can talk very briefly on the recommendations which are summarised on the final page,
Yeah.
which is page 48.
Yes, thank you.
So the first one about transparency. So
It's a very good report, by the way, I thought, yeah.
It's been raised that we do have virtually all the financial documents that we should have on the website. However, a lot of them are within agendas, for example, that might be difficult to find. So this recommendation is really to bring those all together in one central location so that they can be easily located in the spirit of transparency, and that's something that we'll work on. The other 2 points are ones that have already been addressed. The first is where you have any significant variances, you need to report those to the external auditor, and we put those within the annual return that we send to them. And with the recommendation on fixed assets, that's also been actioned.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Yes, Councillor Marsden?
I'd like to propose that we approve the report as recommended. To develop your point about it, the election report, I'd just like to read out the summary, which is our sample testing did not uncover any errors or misstatements that require reporting to the external auditor, nor did we identify any significant weaknesses in the internal controls such that public money will be put at risk. It's clear that the council takes governance, policies and procedures very seriously, and I'm pleased to report overall the systems and procedures you have in place are fit for purpose. Whilst my report may contain recommendations to change these are not indicative of any significant failings, but rather are pointers to improving upon an already well-ordered system. So I'd like to congratulate the officers for this carrying out their duties in a way that's led to this excellent report. No non-performances and a few minor recommendations to improve transparency in 1 or 2 places. So yes, I'd like to propose that we approve the report and thank the officers for
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded? Yes, Councillor Walnut, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's great. And that concludes our meeting this evening. Many thanks for your contributions.